don't understand this. Even for liberal college students or people who haven't yet begun to pay taxes, I don't understand why anyone thinks socialism works.
Well, this is really just comes down to a matter of definitions. Most millennials, most people of any generation just have little knowledge on what the definition of socialism actually is, and that's largely because it's been such an unmitigated disaster. Socialism is the government ownership of the means of production, and whenever that's been instituted in reality, it's been an unmitigated disaster. It's caused 100 million deaths in the 20th century alone. So now when people think of socialism, they think of mixed market economies, much like the one we have in the United States, much like they have in the Nordic countries. So when a millennial says, yes, I'm a socialist, what they mean is I'm for a bigger welfare state, perhaps. And as you see in this survey, I think about 51% of these millennials identify as Democrats. So I see a silver lining here is that 31% identify as a socialist, but 20% of these Democrats don't. So I think that's somewhat of a good thing.
Right, and maybe it's painting me as a cynic because I read this and I feel like throwing up my hands at my own generation and saying, what's wrong with you? I understand that, education is very liberal. I understand that college campuses try to hide the truth from students in order to indoctrinate them so that they vote for liberals. That's the goal of college campuses these days. But I don't understand. We have our phones at our fingertips. You can Google things. We don't even have to look to the previous generation. We don't even have to look to the Soviet Union. We can look in our own lifetime. In Venezuela. Venezuela went from being the richest and most prosperous country in South America to the government in the mid-1990s. They started to take over the means of production and distribution. They took over 1,400 private businesses. In the space of 20 years, they are now a disaster. They're essentially a failed state. I don't understand why, even if schools are telling students one thing, why they don't just look it up for themselves and see the truth.
Well, let's be clear on college campuses. It's not that they're trying to hide the truth. They actively tell students there is no truth. They say that truths are constructs. They're created by, the capitalist oppressors. This is literally what they say on college campuses. And the reason they try to break down truth and say that there is no truth is to make socialism, the government actual ownership of the means of production, something that can work in reality. If it's been such a massive failure in reality, the only way to make it work is to make theory a reality. So it's really not something that they try to hide. I mean, I had a college class in political science, and the first thing the teacher says is, look, there is no truth. Postmodernism, what they teach on college campuses, they bill as the end of reason and rationale for this reason alone. And I mean, a lot of these young students see this as, free college, free healthcare, and so on and so forth. The biggest thing in this survey was that 48% of these millennials don't want their personal income taxes raised. So I think there's a lot of conflicting ideas here.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup.